Here we are, season 2 of Highlander. The reason I have not been watching too many movies recently is pretty much because I'm hooked on this damn show and I can't stop watching it. So I've not started season 3 just yet. I finished season 2 last night, and I'll just say straight up, this season is better than season 1 in pretty much every way. There's less of the really dated 90s-ish things, though some of those are still apparent. There's less of the kind of cringy episodes, a lot less. In fact, it was a little more difficult to do my worst 5 episodes this time around. And just in general, the acting's a little better, stories are a lot better, and I don't mean just stories that continue kind of the story of Highlander and what's going on in the world building things. Also mean just your standard standalone Immortal of the Week kind of episodes. Everything just feels better. Like they improved upon it a lot more, which is great. Now, the stories are generally more interesting in season 2. Show takes more risks. Not all of them are successful, in my opinion, but I do appreciate it. There's only one thing that's missing from Highlander, the TV show, for me. Only one. And that's, I want to know more about the quickening. And yes, I know what they say is that you absorb some of the person whose head you cut off, you absorb some of their essence and experiences and things like that. Except no one really acts too different after a quickening. Like, say Richie, who, spoiler alert, becomes an immortal in season 2. Now, there's a quickening that he experiences, and it doesn't necessarily make him better at what skills this immortal had. You don't really see a difference. It's just Richie being Richie, doing Richie things. And that's fine, but I really wish they'd delve more into what this transfer of power and essence entails. What power? What extra power do people who had lots of quickenings have? I hope season 3 and beyond kind of delves into that aspect of the show more. But in terms of what we do get, it's more tonally consistent and more interesting season 2. And it lulls you into a false sense of security, because the start of season 2 is very season 1-ish, though, better written. And then you get to about episode 5 or 6, an episode called The Darkness. And I'm like, this is not a bad story. It takes elements that were, established at the end of season 1, and they're building upon it. This is good. This is interesting. Different kind of big bads are really cool. And then the end happens, and spoiler alert, Tess dies. Tessa. I'm bawling my eyes out, 39-year-old man just crying. Tess is dead. And Richie gets shot as well, and I'm like, all right, Richie and Tessa. I'm like, but unlike Tessa, Richie wakes up, and he's an immortal, which kind of fits because he kind of gets sucked into these mortal shenanigans at the start of the series, all the way back in episode 1. So the gathering is happening. It draws immortals together. So could it just be immortals that are immortal, or people who will be immortals? Because there is precedent for this, all dating back all the way to Highlander, the original movie. Because in that original movie, the Kurgan is after Connor MacLeod, before Connor MacLeod really dies. I think Kurgan's the reason he does die and becomes immortal. But so these people can be drawn to potential immortals. Haven't seen that happen too often, but this is the second case of it with the whole Richie and Duncan thing. So it works in that respect, I think, there too. And with Tessa's passing, we get what feels like a completely different season, which starts off very season 1-ish and then just goes in this different direction. What is the post-Tessa Highlander show like? Well, he gets into a lot more trouble. He's a bit more carefree. He's mourning, of course, for episodes at a time, but it feels like there's more of an adventure aspect towards the show with Duncan, which is something I quite like. And he opens a karate. He buys a karate dojo, which I thought was pretty cool. The only thing that didn't quite wow me with season two was I expected, maybe because the end of season one was so big and awesome, that I thought the end of season two with Counterfeits part one and two would also be super awesome. It's all right. It's all right. There's no really a cliffhanger either, so it's fine. It, uh, it's not great, but it's not horrible either. Now, there are some really good guest appearances as well. We see Don S. Davis, who many people might know from Stargate or Twin Peaks, of course, and we got Jonathan Banks, Mike from Breaking Bad himself, as an immortal. So there's some interesting guest stars, all that kind of thing. Now I just want to go into let's do it. Top fives. So I'm going to do the worst episodes first because let's shit on something first and then let's build it back up for the ending. So for me, the worst episodes of season two, one of them is called Bless the Child. This was very season one in all the bad ways. This American Indian woman and a baby escape from this house full of racist white dudes and meet up with Charlie, who's a new character in Highlander season two. In fact, there's two new characters. I'll get back to my top five in a minute, I guess. So we've got two new characters, one for the first half of the series, the other for the second half. I didn't mention this in my season one review, but the first half of season one set in Seacouver, which I guess is Vancouver. I'm not sure if it's supposed to be America or supposed to be Canada. Probably America, because that's what most TV shows filmed in Vancouver are, set in America. And then the other half of the series is set in Paris, France. So that's no exception here. So we've got actor Philip Aiken playing Charlie, who's used to be in the armed services and stuff, and now runs this dojo that Duncan buys. He owned it first, but Duncan bought it and then put him in charge of it. So he's all right. He's fine. He's not a bad character. He doesn't particularly stand out too much for me either. But the other new character who's in the Paris portion of season two is Michel Modo, who is Maurice Lalonde, and he's in the barge next door. So I really like Maurice. As soon as I saw him in an episode, I was like, I hope he comes back. I liked him. He was funny. He was great. And then he's in the credits for the next episode. I was like, hell yeah. And then we've got, of course, Jim Burns playing Joe Dawson, who's this watcher who Duncan doesn't know if he can trust him or not. And throughout the course of the series, or series two, they develop some kind of a relationship from there. Worst episodes of season two. Here we are. Bless the Child. Yes. Very season one. It's got Charlie and Duncan with this woman and her baby on the run from these racist white guys. Feels very season one. Feels like we've been there, done that, and done it better elsewhere. Really did not like this episode. We've got Studies in Light, which is a very early season two episode before Tessa gets ganked. And Studies in Light has this really edgy kind of emo immortal. And I'm like, this guy's like really 90s and kind of boring. And that was that episode. Wow. I think that was the second episode of season two as well, because I remember the second episode of season one was kind of stanky as well. We've got an episode called The Zone, which has this poor area of Seacouver, and there's bad shit going on. Joe Dawson thinks it might be an immortal, turns out it's not. But Duncan, being the all-round good guy that he is, he's going to try to help out anyway. Just kind of average, very season one-esque kind of shitty story. And then we'll get to the worst episode of season two, in my opinion, is Pharaoh's Daughter. For some reason, Duncan, the buzz of, there's an immortal nearby goes off, and Duncan's just like, whoa. And it's this woman in a sarcophagus who's been in there for 2,000 years. And I'm like, if she's a 2,000-year-old immortal, why wouldn't she just try to get out of that thing and do other... Some things just stretch my credulity just a little too much, and that was one of them. I really couldn't get into that episode. It was awful. And that was it. Like, I kind of had to stretch to to find episodes that I really didn't like. And The Zone, I still don't hate. Neither the same as Studies in Light. They're just like, standard season one-ish kind of stories. So the caliber of stories is definitely a lot better in season 2. So because I've got my favorites here, I'm going to do some honorable mentions. One's The Darkness, because The Darkness is where everything changes. It's the death of Tessa and the rebirth of Richie Ryan as an immortal, a young immortal. We got Epitaph for Tommy, an episode very memorable because Mr. Chew Bubblegum himself, Rowdy Roddy Piper, is an evil immortal, and I was just like, yes! Fortunately, he gets beheaded in that one episode, and I was like, no! Oh, I'd love to see him come back. Another one is a really fun kind of boxing fighter kind of story called The Fighter, which is something I really like. I really like some of the flashbacks in that. And another one is called Under Color of Authority, which is a really cool story with Jonathan Banks, and it involves him being some kind of bounty hunter and Richie helping this girl that he's protecting and that Jonathan Banks is after. So that's a really cool story as well. But we got top 5 here, and I know usually people go for part 1 and 2 of a story and count them as like 1, but I'm going to count them as 2. We've got Unholy Alliance. We've got Horton, and one of the big bads so far in Highlander, who killed Darius. Excuse me. He teams up with the guy from the Fine Young Cannibal, Xavier Sinclair, St. Cloud, I think it is, and they're cheating. They're playing against the rules. Xavier will get people to machine gun immortals, and then he'll just go do. So, not good. But that episode, that 2-part story, was freaking awesome. I really loved it. And then we've got another standalone episode called Warmonger, which involves Duncan making a promise to this evil immortal that he wouldn't ever go after him unless there were the 2 that were left, if he spared this woman from being executed. So he does. But this guy is a gigantic piece of shit, and it goes from there. That one's really awesome. We've got Legacy, which is one of 2 Amanda stories that we get for season 2. And I love this one because it features the first meeting between Duncan and Amanda. And it's everything I wanted it to be. It was a sweet episode. It was nice. It's pretty kick-ass too. And then these aren't in any order, by the way. But my fifth favorite, I guess, or favorite number 5, would have to be Prodigal Son. Richie comes back after being away for a while. And I love the setup. I love the evil immortal in this. This evil immortal likes to freak out young immortals, so they go back to their masters, and then this evil immortal will go after the master and take the master's head. This guy doesn't just kill any immortals. This guy likes to kill seasoned immortals because there's something so good about killing someone that's lived so long and is so experienced. So yeah, he was one of my favorite villains of season 2 as well. So the consistencies of this season's a lot better. Had a lot more fun watching it. I watched this in maybe half the time I watched season 1, despite the fact that this is also 22 episodes long. And just for that, like, it's a 7 out of 10. It's very episodic. I thought there'd be a little bit more arc-ish in season 2, but it's not quite like that. Still early 90s TV, and they haven't quite started doing too many arcs yet. I guess no one's really caught on to what Babylon 5 is doing, except for Deep Space Nine, which tried to copy Babylon 5 at every turn. And not as good. Anyway, 7 out of 10 for Highlander Season 2. It's well worth a watch. I watched Season 1 on Tubi, and then towards the end of Season 2 I realised, wait a minute, for me it's on Amazon Prime. And it might be on Hulu for you. So I watched this one commercial free. Yes! Yeah. I'm going to get started on Season 3 today as well. So we'll see how we go. Do the like, subscribe thing if you want.